Y como acaban de ver, estamos en el Centro Cultural Gimnasio Moderno, un lugar que abre sus puertas para el arte y la cultura en Bogotá. Un espacio ideal para el teatro, para eventos, para darles experiencias únicas a sus clientes. Su ubicación es insuperable, es de verdad un lugar soñado para este tipo de eventos. Y como este es nuestro sueño, lo escogimos como sede de este primer foro digital de Women Working for the World. Y es hora de darle la bienvenida a nuestro primer conversatorio. Se trata de Mujeres en Juntas Directivas, que contará con la participación de Cairns, vicepresidenta ejecutiva de Mastercard, y Marcela Carrasco, presidenta de la División Andina de Mastercard. Ellas en esta conversación abordarán el tema del rol que están teniendo las mujeres en puestos de liderazgo y juntas directivas. Pero antes de iniciar, quiero compartir con ustedes unas estadísticas que me parecen fundamentales. En un estudio de McKinsey y Company publicado en el 2015, muestra que empresas con diversidad de género tienen un 15% más de probabilidades de tener una rentabilidad económica superior al promedio de su sector. Y sobre las mujeres en juntas, otro informe de Catalyst encontró que cuando hay 3 o más de ellas en las juntas, la rentabilidad sobre las ventas sube un 84% y la rentabilidad sobre el capital invertido más de 60%. Creo que esto nos da un gran panorama sobre la importancia de tener y de incluir a mujeres en puestos de liderazgo y en juntas directivas. Pero Moni, cuéntanos más sobre nuestras invitadas.
Cairns, vicepresidenta ejecutiva de Mastercard, lleva la inclusión, la diversidad y la innovación no solo dentro de Mastercard, sino en todo el mundo, creando nuevas asociaciones con gobiernos, empresas y ONGs. Marcela Carrasco, presidenta de la División Andina de Mastercard. Desde su rol es responsable del diseño e implementación de estrategias que permitan ofrecer soluciones tecnológicas seguras, confiables y simples para los mercados que cubre la división.
Good morning, Anne, and welcome to Women Working for the World Forum. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's lovely to be here with you, Marcela. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. So just to start this conversation, we would like to hear a little bit about your story. How a pure mathematician and engineer researcher confronted the difficulties of a professional career on fields that were usually conceived exclusively for men.
Well, I never really thought of it that way, Marcela. I always just did what I enjoyed. And, I started work as an engineer, as you mentioned, having had a pure mathematics degree. And once I'd been a research engineer for a few years, I just thought, wouldn't it be fantastic to go and work offshore on the oil and gas rigs that bring the gas from the North Sea into Britain? And I just rang up the guy who ran the whole thing and suggested that I do that. And so I've always had that attitude to life and work. If there's something that you really want to do, you should just reach out and ask for it.
Thanks for sharing your story, and I can imagine you in that platform in the middle of the ocean. So this is a great example to follow, and it's inspirational for some of us. And now moving to the 30% Club, because you are the co-chair of this great initiative. We know from different studies that are showing us that greater participation of women in the C-levels and board of directors translates into higher levels of profitability in businesses. Could you share with us what is the role of the 30% Club in increasing women's leadership around the world?
Of course. The 30% Club, today it's in over 20 countries. And I must say, I'm absolutely thrilled that Colombia is the most recent country to join us in this quest. It started in Britain about 10 years ago when we had less than 10% of women on boards. And the way it started was that some of the women got together and went to talk to the CEOs and the chairmen of companies, and they were mainly men, practically all men, and said to them, don't you think it would be great to have more women on your board? And would you yourself commit to having at least 30% women in the room? Now, there is a bit of science behind that, because any minority, once you exceed 30%, you're not a minority anymore. And some of the most enlightened men running some of the biggest industries in Britain said, we agree with you, and we're going to stand beside you, and we're going to commit to change the way our companies work. And that's how it started. In Britain today, after 10 years, we've moved to 36% women in the top 100 companies on the boards. And we've moved out to places like Australia, Japan, Hong Kong, the Middle East and Africa, America, and obviously Latin America. And so many different people have signed up for this now. And the 30% Club, actually, the membership is still predominantly men, because men are still at the top of the world's biggest companies. And our companies range from companies like Citibank and Coca-Cola to British Petroleum to Shiseido in Japan. These men who are sitting at the top of the companies are helping us change things. And it's really making a difference. It's really exciting to see this change happening.
Thank you, and this is great to hear. And we know the UK and other countries already reached the minimum of the 30%. You mentioned that even the UK overpassed the goal that you set for the country. But could you share with us how do you do it? So what's some of the advices that you will give us to some of the countries that are starting this process?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you need some very willing and intelligent and connected women and men to start the secretariat. And you know that in Colombia, from the start, we had huge support from the government, which was absolutely wonderful. And the president committed that the vice president would help us with this. Other people stepped forward. So setting up a group to actually run the 30% Club is the first step. And then that group actually goes out and talks to leaders in industry to recruit them into the club. And apart from setting up the group to administer the club, there can be lots of different organizations within it. So in Britain, we have the full array. One of the most powerful aspects there is actually the investor group. And the investor group has most of the world's big investors involved there, and something like 11 trillion assets under management. And why is the investor group so strong? Because they're the people who call on the CEOs and go to the shareholder meetings and actually persuade boards that they want to change, that they want more balance in their companies. And the investors are doing this not because they're altruistic, but because they know it's good for business. Larry Fink at BlackRock has been very vocal himself on a global basis about this for the last few years. And BlackRock is a member of the 30% Club. So that's one group that's very powerful. Another group is the actual mentorship scheme. Now, we set this up 10 years ago. And when we launched it at the first instance in Britain, we actually had people from one company mentoring people from another company. So it's a cross-company mentorship scheme. There's about 2,500 people involved in that today in Britain, but it's branched out all over the world. The same scheme is being run in America, in Mexico, and actually it's progressed beyond just gender balance to something that we call Mission Include, that looks at different aspects of diversity, such as ethnicity, disability, things like this, because it's very important to have a fully inclusive workforce. So that's another area. And then in different parts of the world, we have other different organizations, depending on what the structure of the country is. In Britain, we have an automotive part of the 30% Club, where all of the people from that industry actually get together, technology groups, people who focus on universities. And by the way, our university program, that's a global program where we have top business schools from all over the world actually provide us scholarships for women, mini MBAs, if you like, to actually train them and educate them, and, you know, high potential women with the opportunity to go onto the C-suite or onto the boards of other companies. And so these are all the types of things that we offer.
This is great, and we launched the 30% Club here in Colombia last year. We are today we are at 17% penetration of women in board of directors. So we still have a long way to go, but our goal is to achieve the 30% target by 2024. That's the idea. And now, and you mentioned that we understand that now in countries like the UK. Now we are what is next in these countries, and you mentioned something about expanding the scope by working on other aspects of diversity. Could you explain a little bit more of what this means?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, early last year, well before the Black Lives Matter movement escalated in America, we were talking in Britain saying, you know, we have a very many people have come to live in our country from many different parts of the world. And so the ethnic mix is quite high. I mean, it's up to sort of 40% in some areas of London. And yet what we saw in our business world was that it was predominantly white. You know, the people from other ethnicities were not well represented, especially at the top of companies. So in June last year, we would like to include a new goal, which is for the top 350 companies in Britain. We would like you to go for at least one person of colour in your board, and we would like the same in your management teams. And because we're the 30% Club and we have a gender lens on everything, we would like 50% of these positions to go to women. Well, it was very interesting, Marcela, because everybody was pretty relaxed about going for one person of colour, for example, on their boards and in their management teams. But several of the CEOs rang me up and said, Anne, do you think that it's actually realistic that we could have 50% of these positions going to women? I mean, can we achieve that target? And it was great for me, because I actually said, well, you're actually tracking at about 42% now. So absolutely you can do it. You know, you're well on track for it. So they hadn't realized that that's actually what was happening. So sometimes what you find when you're setting aspirational goals with chairs and CEOs, they want to achieve them. They want to do the best for their companies, and having the data to actually say to them, this target is realistic, can be very important with everything we do.
This is great, and so now we understand that the 30% Club is a group of CEOs and chairmen committed to increasing women's participation in boards of directors and C-levels. But the board of directors is at the top of the corporations, and we know from McKinsey that if women have the same involvement as men in the economies, the potential boost for Latin America could be 2.6 trillion in the next 5 years. So from your point of view, what can we do to speed that change in the corporations, in the companies?
Yes, this is a great question. Actually, the 30% Club's been looking at what we do inside companies, and we've got a report out called Are You Missing Millions? Because we believe that companies are losing profit by not diversifying fast enough. And you're quite right that actually the big thing is getting women coming up through the pipeline. And McKinsey have also looked at this, and they've said that actually where women are starting to have real problems is the first rung of the management ladder. That's where you see men accelerating, women staying where they are, and sometimes women leaving the companies that they're in. And here at Mastercard, actually, we looked at that because, you know, I'd read the McKinsey report and I thought, is that really happening in our company? And we did a survey all around the world, and the results came back and told us it was. We saw big attrition rates for women kind of in their 30s at that first rung of the management ladder. So we put in a mentorship scheme around the world. It involved 800 people to help these women at that level. We've run it for a year now, and a really interesting set of results have come out. First of all, our attrition has really shrunk at that level for women, and the women that have been on that scheme have got higher performance ratings than they had in the previous years. So the mentorship is definitely helping them perform. We'll have to see as time goes on about the promotions, but that's what we really want to hit. This year, there's 1,100 people signed up for this scheme. So obviously there's a lot of encouragement and excitement inside the company that these kind of techniques can work. And I think there are many things that you can do inside your own company. I actually think that the important thing is to be really honest with yourself about where you have the problems, collect the data, and then try and put in programs that change things and measure whether they changed anything.
This is great. And if you, so we have a group of women listening to you today, some of them leaders in different leadership positions in different companies. So what would be your advice for these women in order to push this change inside their companies and to open the space for new generations?
Look, I think that women have to network together. You know, in Mastercard, we have a women's network that I think every woman in the world is part of, and most of the men, by the way. Today, I tuned into the Women's Network session in New York, and our CEO was on there with one of our top women board members who is, you know, the Dean of Columbia Business School. So that was fantastic. So first of all, networking is really important. So everybody should network. And then I think that it's important that the discussions occur between men and women about having things in the company, such as balanced slates, whenever you're recruiting for a position. And also take a hard look at things like your succession plans. You know, make sure that they're properly balanced and that you have enough women coming through there. As an individual woman, I think it's important that you actually go for things, that you don't step back. Everybody feels that, you know, there's things they could improve on, that they're never 100% perfect at anything. I feel like that. So, you know, I think that you should go for things, even if you have things to learn in the next job. You should have things to learn. You should have stretch assignments. And if you feel you're not making the progress, try and get honest feedback from people about why not and where you need to improve. One of the things that I've said is if you want honest feedback, go and ask your ex-boss, not your current boss. Especially if you're friendly with that person. It's sometimes very hard. I know myself, and you do, Marcela, you're a very senior manager. Giving somebody feedback without demoralizing them can be very hard. So you try and give them the messages in a soft way, and sometimes they miss them. Whereas if you go and talk to your ex-boss, they'll tell you exactly, you know, what's going on because you're not working for them anymore. The other thing that I've said is, you know, if you find that you're not really getting good feedback and a good relationship with your current boss, then change, go and work for somebody else, because actually your career is driven by the person that you work for, no more so than anybody else in the organization. So, you know, if that's not the right chemistry, it's not the right person to be working with for you, you have to do something. I'm not suggesting that, everybody ups and leaves a job immediately, but I'm saying, you can't sit in a job for years and things are not really working out between you and the people you're working with. You have to be honest with yourself about that. So it's a lot of self-realization and obviously, ambition as well. There's nothing wrong with ambition. It's a great thing to have. And also I'd say to younger women, especially, I have a daughter and I had my daughter in my 30s and I took maternity leave, but I didn't have a career break. And now, many years later, 27 years later, I look back and I think, I'm glad I continued with my career because I had such a fantastic career in my life. And really, I had only begun it in my 30s and, life just got better from there on. So don't step out for long periods of time. Or if you do, then come back in, even in your 40s, because, you could have 20 years ahead of you. And so many intelligent and worthwhile and, really skilled and talented women have stepped out and not come back. And that's such a shame for them and also for their families and for the world's economy. COVID, where it's been so hard to have care about your parents. I think that we need to think about women, particularly that have borne this burden, and make it easier for them to actually, come back into the working world to operate in a post-COVID world. We have to be thinking of all of these things.
Thank you, and great advices for all of us. And my last question, thinking about the future of work and the building back process we're going through, do you think this is an opportunity for companies to make themselves more diverse, to make themselves more like their customers, more like the world in general? Do you see that this is going to change and this is an opportunity for all of us?
Well, look, I think, first of all, we have to make that opportunity, because if we sit back and look at COVID, Marcela, 2/3 of the job losses in the world have been lost by women. So women have left the workforce in millions and millions this year and last year. So we have to address that issue. Otherwise, we go backwards really quickly. And I do think that COVID has taught us that we can work remotely and get a lot of productivity this way. And so I think that in a world where we're building back, we should allow flexibility to have a combination of remote working and office work, and do it in a way that you see people when you want to collaborate, but that you work remotely where it makes sense for you to do that. And I think that we should look at this, and we should look at all sorts of different things that we can do, with technology, such as it could make things like job sharing more easier. And also obviously learning on the job, because I think you should never stop training and never stop your mind actually finding out how to do the latest techniques and the latest things. So I think all of these things could help us build back better. And I know that in the technology world, we don't have enough women coming out of university with STEM subjects. And so it's hard for us sometimes to recruit people in our programming areas. I was just listening to our CEO, Michael, today, and he was talking about that that we're going beyond even graduates now, and we're starting to recruit people on apprenticeships. I love the idea of that, because that's changing the landscape about who you can include in the future. And it's going for skilling up people in the work environment from being very young. And I hope through that route that we might get more women into the technical side, and we might get much more diversity by, people from different backgrounds who might not have been able to afford to go to university. So I think it's really important that we think of all of these things. And I know that you're the leader in Colombia and actually in that region of Latin America. And so, you know, the weight of that falls on your shoulders too, to be thinking of all of these things for your own people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, and very positive outlook. And we know, well, we are all working on these to make this a reality. So it's great to hear this from you. Thank you very much. So we could spend hours here talking about this very relevant topic, but I'm afraid we do not have much time left. Just wanted to thank you for your time and participation in this forum. And to thank and, of course, congratulate the Juanfe Foundation for making this event and Catalina for inviting us to participate in this great session. So thank you very much, Anne, and appreciate very much your time.
Thank you, Marcela. It's always wonderful to talk to you, and I'd love to come and see you as soon as I can. You live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome back to Colombia. I hope we can make it this year. And take care, please.
You too.